And I was told, we've been talking and you're too loud. You're too confident. And
Wait
it
a minute.
makes,
They said, hold up. They said you're too confident?
yeah,
Oh my.
yep. And it makes people uncomfortable.
I'll have what she's having.
Welcome to another edition of
She talks confidence
podcast.
Confidence for women, stories about women for women. This is the She Talks Confidence podcast. It's Tony. I'm back. Hey, how you doing? As usual. And I have a return special guest, Traci Peterson. She is a board certified nurse practitioner. Last time we talked about your clients and the plastic surgery and stuff, which was an awesome show. She is a mom of 3 with 2 girls, which we're going to talk about this week. And she owns 2 wellness companies. Traci, how you doing?
I'm doing so good. I'm happy to be back. You're the best,
Oh, yeah.
Tony.
I appreciate that. And it's so really, I got to be honest with you. I love having return guests because it's almost like we just hit the ground running. It's
Yeah,
great.
we just
There's
pick
not a
up where
lot.
we leave off.
Basically, and that was such a good show last time because I think that was so important. Now, this time we're going to pivot a little bit because of 2 things that are very near and dear to our hearts. One thing, it's you have girls and I was a girl dad. And that's the reason why I do this.
Right.
Is because I raised my daughter and I learned that whole reality existed. I'm going to go right into it in terms of why you're on and why I think this is important. You have a retreat coming up and it's a mother-daughter retreat. Can you talk a little bit about that? And we'll just roll right into the whole thing about confidence in mothers and daughters.
Yeah, absolutely. So really what it goes back to, the origin of this is my daughter, Quinn, she's my oldest. When she was 9 years old, we were just in a typical after school situation where she was sitting at our counter and I was doing dishes. And she says to me, "Hey, Mom, can we do woman lessons?" And I was like, "Woman lessons? Of course. I'm a woman. I'm standing right here. What do you want to know? What does that mean to you?" And she said, so thoughtfully, Tony, at 9 years old, she said, "I need to learn how to do my makeup. I need to learn how to put together an outfit. And I need to learn how to cook." And I go, that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard from this little 9-year-old. And then my high performing nurse practitioner, entrepreneur woman was like, wait a minute. If that's all that she thinks a woman is, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm only modeling what we look like and what we do. And so it really got me started thinking about what type of woman do I want her to grow up into? What lessons do I want to teach her? And more importantly, what sort of behaviors do I want to model for her to follow? And so I got really introspective and I looked at, where does true confidence come from? And so I created these 7 woman lessons to help women and their daughters look inward and upward for their validation.
Did you ever figure out, or did she ever explain to you why those were the 3 things that she threw out there at the beginning?
Yeah, we had conversations after that, but that was the springboard. And I call those moments 1-minute moments, because I think with our kids, they can be our greatest teachers if we allow them to be. And these 1-minute moments, if we don't just brush them off and let them pass us by, I think they can really just take your trajectory and turn it a degree or 2. And then you end up in a totally different place. Her question caused me to get introspective. And then I started asking her more, and we called it woman lessons. What does that mean? What do you want to learn? What sort of activities do you want to do? So it started this really fun, I don't want to say banter, but it was just this conversation starter and link between us. And what's really cool about it is it's like it's by us for us, right? She's this little creative outlet for me, and it's something that we can do together to grow our bond and our connection. And she gives the best feedback, honest feedback, raw feedback.
Yeah,
And I have to be careful what I wish for sometimes. But
which is the great thing about kids, right? They'll just throw it out there. Yeah, there's really no filter when it comes, especially with moms and dads.
yeah.
When you were talking to her, was there a level of understanding of that initially, or did all of that sort of cultivate as you guys were going through your process of figuring out her questions and answers? And then you're like, oh, hold up a second. And did you develop your program through that process?
That's a great question. I went back through my journey and what helped me to gain true confidence. And I had to look back at times when I didn't have that inner confidence, where I was looking externally for all of my validation, when I cared more about what people thought of me than I thought about myself. It really took me on this journey because I think the 7 woman lessons are the process and the techniques that I had to learn and I had to develop in order to get me where I am today. So it's basically a compilation of 41 years of trial and error and heartache and experiences. Some of them came to me very quickly. And this is interesting, the ones that I didn't want to share, the ones that I didn't want to talk about were the ones that I knew mattered the most,
Sure.
because those are the ones that are triggering. And I say that well-intentioned parents, normally I say mothers, but I'm going to say parents on here because you probably have felt some of the same things. Well-intentioned parents can inadvertently project their insecurities onto their children
All the time.
all the time.
Yeah.
And the only way to fix it is to look at ourselves as parents, and not as parents, as an individual, saying, oh, this is triggering me, or I don't want to go and talk about that. I got to dig a little bit deeper and find out why. Because a lot of these lessons came quickly to me because I mastered them. I conquered them. Let's go. The one that stuck was the lesson that ended up being, you are more than your body.
Hmm.
It's such a sensitive topic that I didn't want to offend. I didn't want to push people away. I want this to be an inviting community. But then again, I was caring more about what other people thought of the message than just knowing that this is something that I need to share and that I can help people to walk through with us side by side.
It's not like you all of a sudden you flip a switch one day when you realize it and then everything's great. What it is, it's an understanding that it's there. And a lot of times we get pulled out of ourselves and we get triggered by
Yep.
certain things and certain people and especially with our weaknesses and our insecurities. And we find ourselves spinning in that direction. True confidence is having the ability to interrupt that and then to center yourself again. Now, in that whole process, did you find that your hard one, your trigger, was also hers, or did she have different ones than you
Yeah.
did? And if they were the same, did you go, oh man, is that because of me?
Yeah. Great question. I think my insecurities were not hers yet, but I could see that if I didn't get ahead of it, if I didn't conquer it, or if I didn't master it, or if I didn't develop a healthy relationship with my body and loving my body in all of the phases and not hyper focusing on it, then she would be doomed to repeat the patterns of my past. So I just knew I had to dive in. And it's interesting, to your point, it's like when we're raising these children, we really are raising ourselves at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's okay. I think we need to talk about that more. Like, that as a parent, you don't have it all figured out. You're not this like untouchable superhero, because the problem with that sort of mentality is then your children grow up to be an adult and then they have interactions with you and they're like, wait a minute, you're working on the same things that I am. Like, we're on a level playing field here. And
Yeah.
ultimately, we're just doing the best we could with the resources that we had at the time. So that's why I tried to create, or why I wanted to create this mother-daughter movement, is to increase the amount of resources that mothers have and daughters have, so that we can come together, personally develop side by side, each as an individual. But as we both progress individually, we're better able to make a secure attachment. Because sometimes I just think we go surface fluff, where it's, let's go do something fun, yay!
Mm-hmm.
But it's so surface. And true confidence to me is self-acceptance, is accepting yourself for all the good, all the bad, all the strengths, all the weaknesses, accepting those, not as your forever truth, but just accepting that this is where I'm at, but I'm so excited for who I'm becoming. And I'm so excited for where I'm going. It reminds me of a time when I was 14 and I had just won student body president, and which was awesome and a highlight for me. And then I walk out into the hallway and there's a circle of my group of friends, girlfriends, and they didn't know that I was behind them. And I walked up behind them. They were like, oh, I don't even know why Traci won. Oh, she's not even that great. I didn't even vote for her, blah, 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 blah. And it was like,
Those were
oh
your
my,
friends?
those were my friends, quote
Oh,
unquote,
wow. Oh, yeah.
And then to add insult to injury, I go home looking for solace, right? And I'm like, why are these girls having a hard time with me? And I was told, we've been talking and you're too loud, you're too confident. And
Wait
it
a minute.
makes,
They said, hold up. They said you're too confident?
yeah,
Oh, my.
yep. And it makes people uncomfortable. So I was taken back, literally had my breath taken from me, because all through my life, I was celebrated for these natural leadership abilities. And I was told there's a difference between being bossy and being confident, and you're being bossy. And it just, that point, I just started turning down my light, right?
Mm.
I'm going to shine, but don't shine too bright, because then other people around you are going to feel uncomfortable. And that went on for probably 20 years, just thinking I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with my divine gifts that God gave me. Something's wrong with them if it makes people uncomfortable.
I talked to my daughter about this a lot. She was very much like that
Mm-hmm.
in growing up. And the discussion that I had with her at the time was, I'm like, listen, first of all, you're like, what, 8, 9, 10. You don't really even discern the differences. You're not really developed to the point where you can understand the difference really between true confidence and then some ego stuff that goes on with
Sure.
there. And I said, the second thing is that do not ever let anybody take that shine away from you. You be as true and authentic as you can be. Now, the thing is that sometimes you may have to step that back.
Sure.
You have to be accountable
Sure.
for what you do and your actions that you take. But if anybody tries to, or especially myself, tries to thwart that energy of her developing into herself, that's just such a huge disservice. And again, it's like what happened to you all of a sudden, and especially with women and with girls,
Yeah.
because you guys are, it's true. And this is just research based. You're so much further emotionally developed than guys are. And you also have this level of overthinking that
Mm-hmm.
because your process is very fluid and it's very refined, you guys overthink like crazy. And if somebody gives you a permission to overthink, you're going to do that, and it's going
Yeah.
to be an absolute mess. And that's what I see
Yeah.
happen there.
Yeah.
That I want to get into the 7 things and I think, but
Yeah.
first, before I do that, I'd like to finish up on this. How did you get out of that? What was your
Mm,
epiphany? How did you graduate through that process
yeah.
to where you're like, hold up a minute, I can do this, and I'm okay to be
Yeah.
this way.
This is what's a little bit sad, and what I'm trying to save other mothers and daughters from is it took me probably 20 years to figure it out. And what it took was for me to be surrounded by a community that celebrated my divine gifts, that celebrated and showed me how I can harness those natural gifts and use them to my advantage. So instead of being bossy, I'm a master delegator. So it's just a matter of reframing, because I think our labels that people give us or that we give ourselves or society gives us become limitations. So for me, it was surrounding myself with a group of people who saw my gifts, who talked about them, who celebrated them, who wanted to build me up for them because they could handle them because they were like me. And back when that originally happened, what I wish, and it's always hindsight is 2020, but what I wish somebody would have said was, if those people see your gifts and they're too much for them, they are not your people. You can still be kind. We should always be kind, but they are not your people. Let's go out and find some people who see your gifts, who celebrate your gifts, and who want you to exploit those gifts in the service of other people. And so it took me until I was probably 35 years old until I found that community. And that I knew that I wanted that community and around me enough. I got a little taste of it that anybody who didn't fall within those parameters, I was okay setting a boundary for.
How important that is that to find your tribe? How important is that?
So important.
Huge.
It's the most important thing. So then it's a little bit tricky, Tony, to teach that to our daughters, because what's the message? Just think of society. Now there's two sides to it. So we're going to get a little controversial here, because there's two sides to the coin here, because they're getting the message of befriend everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should be your friend, which I believe that not everybody deserves to be your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
You can always be kind, and we should look for people who are sitting by themselves and be kind. Be what you need. Be the kind of friend that you want to have in other people. You be that for them. But then I teach my daughter and these girls to look for patterns and to pay attention to how, when you leave a group of friends, how do you feel? We call it a chick checklist. And the woman lesson is that your community counts. So we will always be kind to everybody, but we need to do a chick checklist and check in with yourself and ask yourself these questions of, do I feel more supported? And do my friends support me in my natural gifts and abilities and in my talents? Do I feel like a better version of myself when I leave them? How is my energy? Do they fill me up or do they drain me? And again, on the flip side, the ownership goes back to the girl and to the woman to say, I need to make sure that I'm being that. And we call it being a candle lighter. Mm-hmm. Are you going around lighting up people's candles, or are you going around blowing them out? And then are your friends doing the same? And that's just a really good checklist. And then it just, wow, maybe I can keep a little bit more distance. It's not cancel culture, unless it's really unhealthy, and then I'm okay with the cancel culture. That's a healthy boundary. But what are your thoughts on that? I'm interested.
First of all, anybody can do whatever they want. And the second thing is that there's gray areas. There's levels of things. And you spoke specifically to the kindness and then the friendship thing. Two totally different things, right? Sure. So your light goes out there and you try to be the best person and make the world a little bit of a better place than when you leave it, right? That's one thing. That's just overall relationships and just being just a light. The second thing is the friendship thing. And that's where you don't have to be friends with anybody, like you said, but show yourself as a decent and kind person. And some people, it's not going to work, right? It just doesn't. That I talk to my daughter a lot. In fact, I'm talking to my granddaughter about that right now too, because she had just moved schools. And we were talking about the fact that, she doesn't have any friends, or she had one, and then they're triangulating. Oh, that goes. Yep. She's 10, right? Yep. And I'm like, listen, as long as you are a decent and a good person, then you'll find who you're supposed to find. And that's it. Exactly. Just be patient. But for a 10-year-old, that's really a concept, right? We can talk about it because we have developed prefrontal lobes and all that. But that does bring me to, can you talk about, would you like to share some of your steps or tips?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I know it's a part of your program and we're going to talk about
care.
That. But if
I
you
want everybody to know it.
Okay, well then throw them out there.
Yeah. So the first is remember who you are and whose you are. The second is gratitude grounds. The third is own your divine gifts. The fourth is be self more, not self less. You are more than your body, and your community counts, and live in your potential.
And I'm assuming they're all there's no hierarchy there, right?
There's no real hierarchy. We do usually start with remember who you are and whose you are. And that really goes back to truth, right? Because I know that our daughters are being bombarded with messages that they see, messages that they hear from media, from social media, from friends, from family members, from the world, from the external world. So I do think it is so valuable to teach our girls who you really are. Like, that they are. And when you understand who you are internally and that relationship with your creator, you are less likely to look externally for your identity, for your worth. And that to me is foundational.
100%.
Everything
That
else
is
can
right.
build on that.
Yeah, that is the foundation. Because what that does is that creates that level of introspection and understanding and acceptance of really, I call it warts and all, but you had talked about it as well.
Right.
And if you start from there and you get the support of that being okay by your mom,
Yeah.
by your parents, by your tribe that you have, then you operate from there. You introduce the concepts, and then what's the process of the share between the mom and the
Yeah.
daughter?
Yeah. So our process really, so we break it down and we do 2 woman lessons per event. So we do mother-daughter date nights and they're in person. And I vacillated and went back and forth for a while. I'm like, I'm going to help a lot more people if I make it available online. However, I want to get these dang girls off their screens. And so I also want to empower the parents that are out there and the moms that are out there is listen to your instinct. Listen to that inner voice, that spirit. And I believe the generation that we live in now, raising kids, is harder, which is why I think when my daughter Quinn asked me that question, I was like, oh, hold on, we're starting down this path
Mhm.
of external validation. I got to stop this. I've got to intervene now. And that means I need to work on myself and my insecurities. It is harder in this generation just because of technology and how connected we are and how much information is out there. But I also believe that we were called to be our children's parents right now for a reason.
And that's why it's so necessary to understand these concepts. It's so necessary to sit down and be vulnerable with your daughter with these conversations. It is so
Yes.
vitally important. So, Traci, can you talk about your retreat that you have
Yes.
coming up, when it is, and what you got going on?
Yes, so it's June 7th and 8th in the beautiful foothills of the Utah mountains. It's the most gorgeous time of year to come to Utah. So we will be in Utah, and Friday night, June 7th, we are doing a service project for Mothers Without Borders that helps girls and women who have been sexually trafficked. We're focusing on that candle lighting, being a candle lighter. So we're going to light the candle of a girl on the other side of the world in Africa. It's going to be
That's great.
awesome. Then we're going to do a dress up dance party, karaoke. It's going to be lots of fun, a lot of connecting activities. Because girls these ages between 9 and 12, this tween sort of stage, they just want to do fun stuff with their moms.
Mhm.
And they're really in this season of trying to understand this just with their psychosocial development. It's identity versus confusion.
Mhm.
So they just want to do lots of activities. They want to try on different hats and see which ones they have a proclivity for. And on that Saturday, we're really going to focus on the you are more than your body. So we're bringing in different speakers from across the US, experts in nutrition from a place of self-love, not self-loathing. We're bringing in somebody who has done 48 fitness competitions in 48 states in 48 days to talk about how you're stronger than you think,
Mm.
and that's living in your potential. And then we're going to do a mother-daughter makeup tutorial because that, again, it's fun and it's something that
Yeah.
the girls want to learn and need to learn. So let's learn it
Yeah.
under the veil of the right sort of mentality around it. That makeup can be fun. It's like an accessory. It doesn't have to be who you are, and you don't have to put on your face before you go out of the house. And so we'll bring in different speakers, and we always do different connecting activities. They'll have a workbook that they do at night so that they get to stay really connected through the whole process. So very active. We're going to do like relay races and different things. So it's loads of fun. There's definitely surface with a lot of depth.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Traci
Yeah.
Peterson, thank you so much. And then where can they get that information, and what's your presence in this grand
Yes.
worldwide web of ours?
Yes. So they can go to tracipeterson.com. Tracy's with an I, Peterson's with an O-N. And if your listeners want to enter the code BBG10, they can get 10% off of their ticket.
Awesome.
So they can go there and then follow me on social media. Our handle is at Mother Daughter Movement. And if you're listening to this and you're like, this sounds awesome, then I would encourage you to reach out to me. Literally, I do my own social media. I will connect with you. I'll send you a voice memo, and I want to know how I can best serve you. Maybe it's through this event. Maybe it's not. And I can connect you with something, some service, or some person that can, because this relationship that you have with your daughter is so foundational. And it's the most meaningful investment that you can make in yourself, in her, and in your relationship.
I 100% agree with that. 100%. And looking back, that is so true. Thanks, Traci. I really appreciate it. And if you want to get a hold of me, it's the usual. It's theconfidencedoc.com. You can go on there and get a bunch of fun stuff. There's a free thing on there. I've got an ebook on there. I have a brand new masterclass coming, and it's about how to get out of, run for your life from a toxic relationship, because you don't deserve to be in it. So that's like a quick little masterclass, and I'll let you know exactly when that comes up. It'll be pretty soon. So I hope things are good, and I will talk to you next week.